Hi everyone, I'm John Fenzel. And a few months ago, I was in San Francisco and I visited the final resting place of Wyatt Earp. I thought we'd talk a little bit about his remarkable life. During his lifetime, Wyatt was a lawman, he was a buffalo hunter, a saloon keeper, a miner, a boxing referee, a gambler, and a brothel keeper. Not necessarily in that order. Wyatt Barry Stapp Earp was born on March 19, 1848, and he was the fourth of 8 children. In 1849 or 1850, we're not sure which, Wyatt's father joined about 100 others in relocating from Illinois to San Bernardino County, California, to purchase some farmland. They didn't get far, though. Along the journey, Wyatt's sister, Martha, became ill, so they stopped, and Wyatt's father bought a 160-acre farm in Iowa. 6 years later, Martha died there. The Civil War came, and Wyatt's older brothers, Newton, James, and Virgil, joined the Union Army right away. Their father was busy recruiting and drilling local companies, so Wyatt and his 2 younger brothers, Morgan and Warren, were left in charge of tending to the farm. Wyatt was only 13 years old. He was too young to enlist, but he tried on more than a few occasions to run away and to join the army. Each time his father found him and brought him home. Wyatt's father was still focused, though, on California, and several years later he organized a wagon train and headed to San Bernardino, and they made it there on December 17, 1864. By late summer 1865, Virgil found work as a driver for a stagecoach, and 16-year-old Wyatt went along as well. Wyatt became a teamster transporting cargo for different outfits, to include the Union Pacific Railroad. He learned how to gamble and how to box while working on the railhead in the Wyoming Territory, and he developed a reputation as a referee for boxing matches. And they weren't small matches either. Wyatt met Urilla Sutherland and they married in 1870. She was about to deliver their first child when she tragically died from typhoid fever. Wyatt went through a downward spiral after Urilla's death, and he had a series of legal problems. On one occasion, Wyatt and 2 others were arrested and charged with stealing 2 horses. Bail was set at $500, and Earp decided not to wait for the trial, and he climbed out through the roof of the jail and headed for Peoria, Illinois. The Peoria police raided a house of ill repute and arrested Wyatt and several others. They charged him with keeping and being found in a house of ill fame. This wasn't an isolated incident, by the way. It happened more than a few times, actually. Wyatt was likely a bouncer at those brothels. He moved to Wichita, Kansas, and continued until the cattle drives ended and the cowboys left, and then Wyatt started searching for something else to do. In 1874, he helped an off-duty police officer find thieves who had stolen a man's wagon, and it's right around that time that he officially joined the Wichita Marshal's Office on April 21st, 1875. Wyatt's stint as a Wichita deputy came to a sudden end a year later when he was publicly accused of using his office to help hire his brothers as lawmen. A few fistfights and fines later, his brother James opened a brothel in Dodge City, Kansas, and Wyatt left Wichita to join him. Right around 1875, Dodge City became a major center for cattle drives coming up from Texas, and Wyatt was appointed assistant marshal in Dodge City. While he was there, Wyatt developed a very solid reputation as a lawman. In the winter of 1878, he went to Texas to track down an outlaw, and along the way, he met John Doc Holliday. And of course, Wyatt would credit Doc Holliday for saving his life in a saloon that day, coming to his rescue when he was surrounded, and the 2 became fast friends. Wyatt moved constantly throughout his life from one boomtown to another. He left Dodge City in 1879 and he moved with his brothers James and Virgil to Tombstone, where they had a silver boom fully underway. The Earps, Wyatt, Virgil, and their younger brother Morgan clashed quite a few times with an outlaw group called the Cowboys. That included Tom McClory, Frank McClory, Ike Clanton, and Billy Clanton, who threatened to kill the Earps on several occasions. The conflict escalated over the next year, culminating in the shootout at the OK Corral on October 26, 1881. And it was there that the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday killed 3 of the Cowboys. Ike Clanton and Billy Claiborne fled, but Tom and Frank McClory and Billy Clanton stood their ground and they were killed. Morgan was clipped by a shot across the back, and Virgil was shot through the calf, and Holliday was grazed by a bullet. Over the next 5 months, Virgil was ambushed and maimed, and Morgan was assassinated. Wyatt, Warren Earp, Doc Holliday, and others formed a federal posse which killed 3 of the Cowboys whom they thought were responsible. Wyatt was never wounded in any of the gunfights, unlike his brothers Virgil and Morgan or his friend Doc Holliday, and that only added to his mystique after his death. The gunfight in Tombstone lasted only 30 seconds, but it ended up defining Earp for the rest of his life. Wyatt was a lifelong gambler, and he was always looking for a way to make money. After leaving Tombstone, he went to San Francisco, where he reunited with Josephine Marcus, and they joined the gold rush to Eagle City, Idaho, where they owned mining interests and a saloon. They left there to race horses and open a saloon during the real estate boom in San Diego and in San Francisco. But his reputation suffered irreparably when he refereed the Fitzsimmons versus Sharkey boxing match and called a foul, which led a lot of folks to believe that he had fixed the fight. They moved briefly to Yuma, Arizona before joining the Nome, Alaska gold rush in 1899. The Earps bought a small cottage in Vidal, California, the only home they ever owned. Beginning in 1911 and until Wyatt's health began to fail in 1928, Wyatt and Sadie Earp summered in Los Angeles and spent the rest of the year in the desert working their claims. Wyatt Earp was the last surviving Earp brother and the last surviving participant of the gunfight at the OK Corral when he died at his home in Los Angeles at the age of 80 years old. Josephine was Jewish, so Earp's body was cremated and she secretly buried his remains at the Hills of Eternity Memorial Park, a Jewish cemetery in Colma, California. When she died in 1944, her body was buried alongside his ashes. Their gravesite is the most visited resting place in the cemetery. death, Earp defended his decisions before the gunfight at the OK Corral and his actions afterward in an interview. He said, "For my handling of the situation at Tombstone, I have no regrets. Were it to be done over again, I would do exactly as I did at that time. If the outlaws and their friends and allies imagined that they could intimidate or exterminate the Earps by a process of murder and then hide behind alibis and technicalities of the law, they simply missed their guess. I want to call your particular attention again to one fact, which writers of the Tombstone incidents in history apparently have overlooked. With the deaths of the McLauries and the Clantons, Stillwell, Florentino Cruz, Curly Bill, and the rest, organized politically protected crime and predations in Cochise County ceased." That's Wyatt Earp, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Fenzel, and I thought you'd like to know.